Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the long and short of it with Nick and
Nick,
the
hi.
Double Nicks. Hello. Welcome back. So, in today's session, we wanted to talk about the thing no one talks about. Because when you think about leadership, you see all these great articles on do this, do that.
Mm.
You'll be amazing. No one ever talks about their massive fails or stuff ups or things like that, which we all have, by the way. No one is perfect and we are always learning. So, Nicole, why don't you start us off? What is your leadership crucible moment or something you've observed that made you learn and implement something different in the way that you lead teams?
I'm always going to have failures and silly moments. And so it was very hard to narrow it down for this recording, wasn't it?
5 minutes, not 5 hours.
That's right. Therapy much? I apologize in advance for all my future team members who I will not have led properly, even though I profess to have a big passion on leadership. I think, Nick, I was reflecting on the fact that it's easy to say this is the theory for leadership and this is what I need to do and this is how I'm going to lead my team and this is my cadence and all the good stuff. Just having that self-awareness when things are going off the rails, on two occasions, either when there's a tricky employee and that sets the tone for the rest of the team, that's probably another recording, or when it's crisis management at your company and your workload is blown out of control. And that's probably where I've failed. When it was too busy, I tended to deprioritize my team. And that's never good enough. It's never a good outcome, right? So I can think about COVID
Oh,
and
what was that
pandemic.
again?
Yeah.
Just
Remember that thing?
I blocked it out.
I know. My stepdaughter and I promised ourselves that we're not going to talk about it, but we're going to
Global
go
pandemic.
there. Yes.
Yeah.
Global pandemic, 12-hour days, crisis management, working in a sector that required a lot of attention to make sure that our customers were kept safe. And the priority was around pandemic response and managing the pandemic and making sure, no one in our business was in harm's way, which meant that I had completely deprioritized my day job and looking after my team. And the biggest learning for me from that was take a minute to redefine my MVP as a leader. Right, instead of weekly or daily check-ins or whatever cadence I had, instead of going from that to zero, I should go from that to something. And so defining the basic minimum something, that my MVP as a leader, communicating that, being vulnerable with the team around my time, commitments and my workload and how that could impact on my attention to them, and contracting, getting permission from them to change my leadership style for a short time. That was a big learning. What about you?
Yeah, that's huge. I just want to add that it's sometimes the little things that make the most impact. I did my MBA during the pandemic, and so I did a big survey of a remote workforce, my current company at the time. And the funny thing, not funny, but there was a clear cutoff point at 8 direct reports when things started to go really negative. And to your point, when you're working 12-hour days, you're busy, everyone's asking something of you, you're just pulled in all directions. A lot of the feedback that I was getting in the survey was I can tell my manager's slacking, not slacking, but like on Slack during our one-on-ones. Like, but how do I give them that feedback? Because they're not actually going to be the person who's going to hear that and go, oh, thanks for telling me. This is like really awkward. This is
Yeah.
feedback that is around the fact that you're going to basically be saying, hey, I know you're multitasking and you shouldn't be right now. And like, I'm not giving my manager that feedback. And so it's nice to hear that reflection, because I think a lot of leaders were pulled and they didn't do that contract reset and they tried to maintain whatever they were doing before, and it actually came back in a negative light around their
Yeah.
leadership. Like, one, you have too many direct reports. Two, you're trying to do too much with too little time. And three, I don't feel valued because you're doing something else when I have this 1/2 hour with you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
like
true.
keeping your one-on-ones. So important. So simple. Mine is a little different. So I've been a terrible manager. Spoiler alert. I've also been a good manager. So I will say, I was managing for a couple of years. And then what happened was those environments were very easy. I was hired in as the leader. I was the first leader. it was very natural. Then I went into an environment where I was hired above someone, which I think I underestimated how hard it is to build trust with someone when they feel they could have done the job and they weren't given the opportunity. And then they're assessing every move you make. And what I learned from that, basically what happened is that person had a very close relationship with my boss in the C-suite. And so they would share information with my boss, but not me. Like, I'm interviewing. And I'm like, great, that's so good. Let me help you. But how do I engage that conversation when I'm not the one you're sharing it with? And so I did the wrong thing. I actually used that information and went to that person and said, hey, like, I know you shared with so-and-so that you're interviewing, like, let me help you. Because one, the business needs are changing and it might not be aligned to what you're now able to offer, but also you could be so successful somewhere else. That backfired massively. So luckily, you know, they still talk to me and we have, I think, a decent online relationship now. But looking back, I think the learning there was I was trying to use that information in a way that served me well, not necessarily from their lens or their point of view and the intention that maybe spoke to. Because they would have seen that as like, oh, I can't even share this with like one layer above. I'm feeling all these feels about my new boss. And now they're like actively trying to manage me out, which is probably what it felt like.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily the intention. I will say that person's gone on to be wildly successful, which I love seeing. And like, I truly believe anyone can be successful in the right environment. And my role as a leader is to have those conversations, even if they are uncomfortable, but recognize where I'm coming at it from. Is it my intention that this is going to be a good conversation, or is it for their intention going to be the right conversation and the right information to share? So yeah, that's my fail.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. I think a reflection from you sharing this story is that it's painful in the moment as you're kind of thinking, oh no, I've just stuffed up, or I shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that. The biggest thing is to lean in and do the work, as my coach calls it. Do the work around, okay, face that mistake. What did you learn from it? What are you going to do differently next time? And take some resilience along the way for the next mistake, because we're probably going to make some more along the way. You always will if you're in the arena, won't you?
Yeah, that's the fun part. Got to mess up to learn. So, well, that has been fun. We have probably a lot more we could talk about, but let's save it for next time.
Let's.
All right. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.